and welcome everyone to the ABC of Paranormal Strangeness with your hosts, Renata Daniel from Newcastle Ghost Tours and Anne Rzechowicz from Oz Paratech, and our special ghost tonight, the Silver Fox himself, Roman Rzechowicz from nowhere in particular.
Oz Paratech! God! How's that for an introduction, everyone? Hello.
Good evening.
Oh, God. Everyone, this is my husband, Roman. You may have met him the other week.
That one, not me. There.
Well, that can be mistaken sometimes.
Yeah.
Time they spend together.
I spend more time with Anne than he does,
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that shut everyone up, didn't it?
So, tonight's episode, Roman actually asked, could he present? Oh, first off, I need to know, can you all hear me okay? Because I'm back using the Blue Yeti mic, and I think I've worked out what the problem is. Something got switched off accidentally. So I just need to know if you can hear me okay. Give me some thumbs ups or hearts or something like that, or just say, yes, we can hear you in the comments. So hi, all waves back. So he wanted to present science, saints, and it was meant to be and souls and the subtle mind, but I left out souls when I was telling Renata what to do for the heading. So that's okay, because I'm going to present.
Are we ready to go? Because I need to press my button.
Oh, hang on. Okay. Press
Go.
your button.
Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the ABC of Paranormal Strangeness, and we are up to the letter S tonight, and we have a special guest, Mr. Roman Rzechowicz, who is going to be talking tonight about science, saints, souls, and the subtle mind.
And I'd hate to have a list doing that one.
How wonderful does that
know.
sound?
Sounds a little bit religious to me. I'm a bit worried.
I can hardly wait.
She can hardly wait because she didn't have to prepare for tonight.
I know, right?
And I only really wanted to do that because I actually thought of a series of S words. I thought that'd work.
I know some S words, but I
do
don't
too.
think they would fit into that particular category. But let's move on.
We'd end up getting bleeps.
Yes. Right.
All right, Roman. So what is this all about? Why this topic?
Basically, if we go back about a week, I just put my music player on my phone on to shuffle for all songs, and it came back to something that I've listened to several times over the years, which is a series of conversations with the Dalai Lama when he was here in Australia in, I think it was 2009, I think. So the ABC did a series of discussions with all sorts of interesting people, and one of them was with the presenter of All in the Mind. So I think the ABC Radio National All in the Mind crew were the ones who sort of put it on mostly. And basically, something that really captured my mind listening to it was when he began to speak about how the Buddhist tradition views mind and thinking and thought, and how they tend to, he likes to look at Buddhism as a three-way split. So you've got the Buddhist religion, which basically half the people in Asia follow. You've got the Buddhist philosophy, which is sort of the deeper branch of the religion and where it stems from. And then you've got Buddhist science. So the Buddhists, for probably a good 1,000 years or more, one way or another, have been engaged in training the mind, observing the mind, and trying to sort out how it works, what it does, how you can be happy. So that's one of the aims they have in meditation. So what I really wanted to talk about here, to link it up with the paranormal, is when does mind end? When does it begin, maybe? And also, is the mind a result of the electrochemistry in that kilogram lump of mostly cholesterol, by the way, in your skull?
I actually heard about that yesterday on TV. They were talking about that lump of cholesterol up here in your skull.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you're having that margarine that lowers cholesterol, you're lowering your brain.
Fundamentally.
You don't ever want to eat margarine. That's
don't.
one step away from plastic. So sorry.
No, it's okay. It's good. So it raised all sorts of questions in terms of, is the mind generated by just electrochemical accidents that happen along the way in self-organizing chemistry and biochemistry? And is the soul, if we really have one, is the soul the result of the mind, or is it the cause of the mind in some way? So it sort of follows on a little bit from this talking about quantum mechanics and quantum physics a couple of weeks ago, and that is, there's so much we don't know about the universe, and every time we think we've got a good handle on it, it sort of slaps you in the ass and says, nah, there's a whole other layer. You've thought of one question. If you answer that one, you'll generate a dozen more deeper and more meaningful ones.
Just keep your volume up a little bit. People are just saying that the
Okay.
volume's good, but don't. There's three of us that's trying to cover, so.
Yep. So in either case, if the mind causes the soul or if the soul causes mind, can the two survive separately? And part of the Dalai Lama's talk had to do with adepts of meditation whose bodies basically don't start decomposing for weeks after they've died. And it's a fairly common theme in terms of European saints. Same sort of thing in the Muslim tradition with martyrs. And didn't really find anything much about the Mesoamerican Indian people in terms of them experiencing that sort of
it's
thing.
nothing to do with the being a saint and being godly and all that sort of stuff. It's actually something to do with their meditation practices.
Potentially. And that's what the Dalai Lama was talking about, how they're working with some of their top meditators, their monks, are working with modern Western scientists, with modern Western technology to try to figure out what's going on. And one of the things that he spoke about was how they put an EEG, an electroencephalogram, on one of these people who had died, one of the meditators, and his body wasn't decomposing, and they were getting spikes of neural activity for days after he'd actually stopped breathing and his heart had stopped beating, which is really interesting and freaky. And he reckoned there's probably, between sort of India and Tibet, there have probably been something like 20 cases that are pretty well documented of this sort of thing happening. So his thoughts were that if the mind is still there, the body basically hangs together. So if you die and your mind immediately leaves, the body immediately starts decomposing. If you die, but some part of your mind still keeps in some strange way functioning that we don't understand, that has a direct link with the body and what the body does.
Even though the heart isn't working.
Even though the heart's not working, you're not getting oxygen pumped around, you're not getting wastes taken away. Something, maybe because of the changes to the brain, which they've fMRIs and things they've been using to look at meditators who have 10,000 hours, 20, 50, 60, 70,000 hours of meditation practice. These are serious monks, if you want to put it that way. And there is...
Because there's serious monks and not serious monks, apparently.
Exactly. The non-serious ones are the ones who just get it in
They're
for
the
the
ones
free
who wrote
food.
the Maleficus Maleficarum. Is it that right?
Yes.
That one.
The drunk monks.
Yes. The hammer of the witches. No,
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Were they the ones who brought back the perfume-making stills from the Middle East when they came back and made whiskey with it instead?
Possibly.
Okay.
Jason said, is that why when chasing spirits you get headaches or sharp pains in the neck?
I don't know.
No, no, I don't think so.
I
That's
think it's
more of a
unrelated
yeah.
topic.
That
That
could
may
be,
have something to do with you being up far later than you normally would be.
and the amount of energy that you're allowing yourself to absorb or take in, and the amount of energy that you're putting out in concentration.
And the amount of mother drinks you've drunk.
Because
Yeah.
again, most of us aren't don't normally concentrate at those levels for extended periods of time. We concentrate on bits and pieces
For
and
minutes at a time,
yeah,
usually.
minutes. Yeah, when you're trying to connect, you actually have to be still and place your concentration in one spot.
And isn't there I'm sure there is a monk somewhere, they call him the sleeping monk, and they've got him encased in a glass case where he went to meditate under a tree, and they say that he is in such a deep state of meditation that his body has just stopped. I don't know if that's an urban legend or not, but
It's one of those things that
yeah.
gets hard to untangle. And when we move on a little bit to the
oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
no. But when we move on a little bit to the Muslim traditions,
You're right, Lorraine. The
and
mind is
saints.
incredible.
It's hard to know, given the sort of lack of evidence.
Sorry, I'm just saying hello to people.
Given the lack of sort of credible evidence that people collect, a lot of it's hearsay and Chinese or Arabic whispers, if you want, and it's really hard to tease apart what is self-promotion and a bit of, oh, we had this miracle thing happen, and what is actually something that people really want to investigate and have in the open and show and test. And I'm sort of looking at it from the point of view, some of the stories I've found on some of the Muslim saints versus what the Dalai Lama was saying and what they're doing. It's a very different level of openness.
They're saying that mummy is in Koh Samui in Thailand.
Oh, is that
Right,
is that where they bring their relis out each year on their birthday out of the graves and give them new clothes?
I'm
And,
not sure.
or is that somewhere in Borneo? Okay, can't remember.
I'm not sure if it's Thailand. I think they burn them over there, don't they? After a period of time. We're getting off
Not
topic.
sure.
Anyway,
Getting off the well,
So it'll be very easy
Oh.
to distract Roman. Very easy.
and
I
it's
do it
fun.
I do it all the time, deliberately.
So what I was saying with the Buddhist, sort of modern Buddhist tradition is that they look forward, they're keen and willing to engage with modern science to try and move their ancient Buddhist science as well as and their philosophy along with modern Western science.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
That's
just
wonderful.
responding.
Yeah, you're
People.
responding. Okay,
Just
very
ignore
nice.
me. We don't have our big monitor up tonight, so they can't see the comments. Only I can see the comments on my laptop.
And it'll distract us anyway, and
Yeah,
she's
sorry.
distracting me by distracting me from the
Yeah.
comments. Okay, so what does happen to the mind and soul when our body, now this is a line I came up with, so I've got to read it, evolved as a support system for getting our gut around to catch food to survive when that body stops functioning. So it's
So
like
we're just a big anus. So we're
gut,
now just
mouth
we're,
and anus.
we're just assholes. Theoretically,
In the
that's what
end.
we are. Yeah,
Concerned with food.
we're all just assholes.
Yeah,
Right.
they just devour food. That's it. I can relate to that, actually.
Oh, dear. All this progress just gone down the tube.
Corinne says, I think meditation opens your mind to deeper feelings, deeper thoughts, and deeper experiences in the way of paranormal, if that's where your meditation is wanting to go.
And seriously meditating enough actually does change the structure of your mind. So that's been shown repeatedly. So I was saying with the meditators who have got like 60,000 hours up, you'll find that you can see the changes starting to appear. It's a dose response in medical terms. The smaller the dose of meditation, the smaller the effects. The larger the dose, the bigger the effects, and they're directly measurable with modern scientific instruments like functional magnetic resonance images and things like that. And I mean, they're the sort of thing that they do put psychopaths in and show them pictures of small children or animals being hurt and find that they don't have any response to those things. They just
Or
want
worse,
to
they have
control things.
pleasure.
Yeah. So there's fair income science research being done on this, and the more time you spend meditating, the practice of meditation, um, the more control you have of your mind, and the more perhaps things you might be able to focus on or glean or understand,
Mm.
rather than flitting around and watching 3 minutes. Or actually, watch any good movie, and you'll be lucky to get to more than 30 seconds on one shot in that movie. We've been trained for decades now to take things in little snippets, and most of the time, most TV shows and movies you will find have got something closer to a 3 second average
Yeah,
shot time.
we were actually taught that in like when I was learning acting for camera, is that it's I think 3 to 7 seconds before they will change angle because the human mind will lose interest. So you watch your TV shows, particularly the soapies. They'll have one character's face saying something, and then they switch to the other character's face saying something. Then they might go to a wide shot, then they'll come back down again mid shot, and they just keep changing the frame rate all the time, angles, everything.
They're manipulating you.
Mm. But the old Alfred Hitchcock movies, for example, were a prime example of holding a shot and allowing the emotion of that shot to really resonate with the person who was watching. So you do have some of the older movies that are still around, and they're just the classics, obviously, that would hold a particular shot so that you could resonate with the emotions that were coming off it. Yeah. But not anymore.
Not much. Well, there are some movie makers who will do that. It's just they don't generally get big cinema release.
Yeah.
You know? Anyway, so the Dalai Lama. Back to the Dalai Lama.
Yep.
He basically describes us as having two levels of mind. So what he calls the gross mind, which is the active.
My mind.
There's that too. Now get out of the gutter. Get back up into the gutter.
That's the one that's attached to the asshole.
Exactly. That's part of the support system for the
She's
asshole.
with the program.
So it needs to. Its function is to keep the asshole alive, fundamentally. That's its function.
Easy. See? Simple. Yep.
We've got the simple words here. We're simple people.
So when the heart stops, when the breathing stops, that level of mind stops.
Mm.
Does it go somewhere, or does it simply stop? Who knows? That's sort of one of the things that we want to try and find out in the paranormal investigation world.
Yeah.
But what remains is what he describes as subtle mind, and I think that's sort of taken from some of the Indian teachings, as in
laying on a bed of nails.
Middle Eastern. Well, that's one way to do it. No, it's a doddle. So what he's describing is that when these people who are very, very experienced meditators die, what happens is, yes, their gross mind switches off and is gone, but there's something in the structure of their brain, something that they've done to it, that actually does keep. Is it operating? I don't know, but there's still function of some sort going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that linked to the soul? Have they developed more soul because they've spent more time meditating? And
more soul, or is it just
can
improved?
you build it?
Or is it just like the brain where you don't use the full capacity of your brain? You don't gain. Your brain doesn't gain weight as it gains knowledge. Does the soul?
But it changes form and structure.
Oh,
You're doing that. Yes.
okay.
If you cut through the brain, would you see that change of form and structure?
Yeah, but it wouldn't work very well after that.
Who
that's
brought him to the party?
But that's exactly what you're saying there. Is a way of describing. Oh no!
I didn't mean to do that.
Is a way of describing exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way of being able to look at the brain in cross section
Mm-hmm.
while it's functioning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they give you. I don't know if they can do it just with plain sugars, or will they actually give you radioactive tracer type sugars, the same as they're doing PET scans for
Mhm.
cancer treatment. So basically, they give you that, and the detectors move around your body,
Mhm.
and they pick up the decay of this stuff. So you're not actually getting radiation through you. You're getting positrons coming out of these radioactive sugars, and they collect where things are going on.
Mhm.
And the same with the brain. When your brain's functioning, the bits of it that are functioning the fastest, that are processing the most, are using the most oxygen and sugar. And that's where it shows up in the fMRI scan.
Mhm.
But is that your soul?
Well, that's
Here we go.
that's where it gets
Here
deeply
we go. This is
meaningful.
where we get
So
into beliefs and.
did the Dalai Lama come up with a spot where the soul sits or is?
No, I don't think he did. No, I don't think he really went that far. So basically, I think the Buddhist tradition is not so much I've got to be good here so I can make it into heaven. I don't think there's that much of that concept there.
Mm.
It's more we're here, we have the ability to make the best of ourselves here.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
through
we
meditation,
do, but many don't. Yeah.
yeah, but through meditation, we learn to basically switch off a lot of those negative emotions. And I think Buddhism supposedly has something like 48,000 negative emotions. 42,000. It's an incredible number that they can describe.
Wow.
Well, this is just describing them. It's a little bit like.
Did they have something for the positive ones?
Oh yeah, I'm sure they got just as many for the positive
I hope
ones.
so.
But the point was that the more time you spend meditating, the more you can remove the negative emotions coming up, which some do serve a purpose. I mean, they're the sort of things, if you're on the savannah and there's a leopard chasing you, getting frightened and angry and running away is probably a very smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're constantly doing that at work in a government office, feeling like somebody's going to eat you.
That's called anxiety and stress.
Exactly, and that builds up, and that makes, fundamentally, he's looking at that as being one of the major sources of unhappiness for people. So you can get people who are very ill or very disadvantaged who are happy.
Mm.
So nothing to do in the end. It's all in the mind, as Natasha Mitchell says.
You can choose to be miserable, or you can choose to go, that's happening, but I'm actually not too bad.
It's your response. It's your response to it that determines that.
Lorraine said here, some people believe the heart holds memories. There have been documented cases of heart transplant patients having feelings, emotions, and memory of the person who donated the heart.
And livers and kidneys and penises. No, I haven't really heard the one about the penises, but
well, we're all supposed to be a holographic thing,
projection,
aren't we? So any little piece of us holds all of us. That is a theory that some people kind of say. So depending on whatever
your DNA certainly,
whatever you cut off, still holds.
We're talking penises
all
again. Of
you.
Sorry, I missed that.
Leave OJ out of it. Oh, look, there's actually some very well-respected scientists who are heading off down the path of exactly that sort of thing. It's like looking at the quantum mechanics of the molecules and the atoms that are in your DNA and the methylation of them and all the sorts of things they call epigenetics, which is like you've got your genome, which is the plain set when your mother's egg and your father's sperm got together. And then there's what that's experienced, and part of that gets carried on from generation to generation. So there are well documented that if your grandparents in 1932 were starving and only had certain foods to eat, you can very reliably point to you in 2 generations' time having certain characteristics. And that's a sort of memory, sort of a physical memory in your cells. But these guys, these respected scientists who have actually been shoved off to the side a bit because of their theories, their willingness to embrace possibilities and go looking at them. Looking at the, say, neurons in your brain, the current thinking is that it's the connections from one neuron to another. You could have thousands of them. So you have one cell, you have tendrils out everywhere, and that's connecting with thousands of other cells who also have tendrils everywhere. The theory, the thinking, the way of looking at it at the moment is that it's those connections that matter. It's those connections that hold the memory. So if you have this one and this one and this one triggered, that'll trigger this one and that'll string on. So you've got this massively parallel computing system as your brain, and that fires off something, some sense or trigger starts things off, and that basically explodes down the direction of memories and thoughts. And that's fundamentally how our brain works, how it stores memories. So it's like there's the strength of connections between neurons. They say that what they've done is basically sort of burnt out neurons, and then found that once they allowed them to regrow, those memories, that response set that that neuron had is still there. So it's something, there's memory in that single cell.
Okay.
So once an asshole, always an asshole.
We're having trouble with subtitles again. You can turn them off, people. It is not us that's putting the subtitles on. It's whatever you're watching it on is putting up the subtitles. It's a new thing that they've done on Facebook.
And that can be really funny too.
Apparently
it
is. She said, have you read some of the subtitles? Not always accurate. Some are really funny. Please screenshot some of them and send them to us. I'd love to see the funny ones.
That was a funny, I'm sure I hit a funny one from Maitland Jail. Yeah, something that had nothing to do with what
I
we
did
were
have a
saying.
question here from Heather. Do you think that the fact that some spirit come back to communicate easier than others may be tied to finding different levels of inner peace at the time of passing? I think sometimes it can be quite the opposite. It can be quite a traumatic passing, and that's why they're still lingering.
Yes.
That's a hard one to answer.
From some of the readings that I've done, the understanding is that the more time a person has to understand that they are in the process of dying and that they are going to die, the more they come to a place of peace and understanding and acceptance. And so they let go of a number of emotions and issues. And so when that time comes, there's more of a readiness and an acceptance. If it is a sudden death or a very painful death where the brain or the mind doesn't have time to go through that process of understanding, that might be what allows some of these spirits to have this energy to stay here and to...
They're not organised to leave.
Yeah, they're not.
Properly.
They haven't organised themselves to leave properly. Yeah.
This is interesting.
It's like packing up your house.
Interesting comment from Margie. We are born with a fear of falling, which is true, and a fear of loud noises. This is self-preservation, and babies are born with startle reflexes.
Yeah.
I believe.
You worry if they don't have them.
Yeah, I believe other fears are gained through conditioning. We are born with love for others and love for self until our minds are conditioned. Yes, we have allowed our pineal gland to go to sleep.
Yeah, and follow the money on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, shall I go into the
Yes,
next?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, have we got a troll? Oh, how exciting.
Hello.
Hello, trolley. Who's
That's
the
okay.
troll?
No, somebody said we had a troll. It's all right.
Oh.
Don't worry. I'm looking for them.
Now,
That's all right. It's too highbrow.
We'll
We'll lose it.
Big words in this show. You might not cope.
okay, so the next thing I was wanting to move on to was some of the Muslim world's take on the same sort of thing as the Dalai Lama was talking about. However, that's a lot more, most of what I could find was a lot more tainted by religious fervour than scientific inquiry. For example, and it sort of comes through in the amount and the quality of the way things are documented. So one thing I found was that in either 1929 or 1932, depending on the recounting that you find about it, King Faisal of Iraq supposedly had repeated dreams of an Islamic saint complaining to him that where he and his fellow saint were interred was becoming waterlogged, and he wanted to be moved. He wanted a better room, basically.
Hmm.
So I've actually got a link there that we'll put up later. But basically, it's rightfulreligion.com, E49, fresh dead bodies of 2 companions of Prophet Muhammad in Iraq. So I don't know what you want to do with the. Can we do anything with the?
There's a camera there. You can pick it up and turn it around.
How's that?
Yeah, that's pretty
perfect.
Good. That's perfect.
Okay, so yes, that photo is as blurry and as washed out as it looks on there. So basically, on the ground there, they're supposed to have 2 bodies of 2 saints that have been in the ground for either hundreds or thousands of years. Yeah, so given when Muhammad was around, I don't know about the thousands of years, but basically they were supposed to be as fresh as the day they were buried.
Wow, really?
And supposedly it was documented. Supposedly there were what's the German newspaper, Deutsche Welle, were there, and the BBC were there, and they filmed the cortege as they brought these saints out of the tomb, dried them off a bit because they were in fact going underwater, and put them in glass cases that were specially built for the journey to the new interment.
Well, just while we're here, Donna very happily called us scammers because nobody's called us scammers for a while. So we've finally been called scammers. Thank you so much. We will
excellent. Send your money to.
We will refund every cent that we've taken tonight.
Yes, Donna.
Not a problem. Not a problem
there you
at
are.
all.
We'll throw all the money back at you, Donna, that you've spent. Thank you by being here anyway. Thank you for supporting us.
You're giving up your time to watch us. We so humbly appreciate that.
Thank you, Donna. Spend more time with us, Donna. We love you. Thank you.
Okay, now here's the really
that's
creepy
crazy.
one.
That's
what's
creepier.
This? What is this one?
Oh, wait till you
I
see
know,
it.
I saw it, but I don't understand what it is. It's a foot.
That's supposed to be the foot of
What are the
a Muslim saint sticking out of his grave somewhere in Syria.
Holy shitballs.
And there's instructions on how to get there if anyone wants to brave Syria at the moment. Which would be a dumb idea. Hopefully, he hasn't been bombed. But basically, what they're saying is there's this foot sticking out of his grave, and it is as pink and as happy as the day before he was buried.
Wow, that's amazing.
Now, somebody just got a spare leg that they found somewhere and shoved it down there and took photos. I don't know. That's the point I'm trying to make is there's...
Oh, Donna was impressed by that. She said, "What the fuck? Wow, she's learning something new."
There is a difference in the way people respond to having these things investigated. And
they're asking, is that ice around it?
No, I think that's just rock,
stones,
like limestone or something like that. Soft stone you'll find caves developing in. So I mean, who knows? Who knows? It's the sort of thing where saying is you're rushed in. Here's the saint.
Yeah.
And then it's all sort of, you can't get too close. You can't touch anything. You can't do this. You can't do that. It starts to feel a little bit like the mythical invisible dragon in the shed.
Yeah.
If you really want people to take it seriously, you've got to act responsibly. And if it's bullshit, then...
Yeah, Kel, I thought it might have been salt too. It looks like salt. Don't know.
Yeah, no, it's some sort of limestoney rock.
I mean, it's one of the traditions, though. Of the,
Donna said apparently
Europeans.
God loves us. Which one?
Take a peek.
The god or the goddesses? Which one is it?
Yeah, it's got to be both.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, the Catholic.
No, it's not shit. It's possibly salt or limestone or something like that. Sorry, go on.
So the Christian Judeo-Christian tradition is very, very similar. They but,
let's get into that. Let's get into Judeo.
I mean, every church is supposed to have a
they do.
saint's
They have
toe
saints.
or something.
Yep, and they
or a bit
sold
of-
off Jesus's cross 1,000 times over.
Yeah, and Margie, it is possible it's some sort of natural preservation going on with the environment. I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. I'm not necessarily down with the whole religious preserved foot by God.
That's
I think he's got
and
bigger things to fry.
interesting colours.
She's
though.
got bigger things to fry.
Oh,
Oh,
and,
Donna, come
and
up with something
JC
funny.
and JC trumps the whole lot by not only not decomposing, but coming back again.
I know, right?
Wow, yeah.
That's pretty talented.
Long live the undead.
Yep, exactly. Jesus was our first zombie. Oh,
Well, he
actually
wasn't.
No, he raised Lazarus from the dead, didn't he?
Yeah,
There you go.
very popular.
Second zombie.
Very popular in the Middle East at those times.
Still got Donna?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently she doesn't know how to get off this channel.
I'm sorry, Donna.
She's
We'll just
stuck
shut it all
here and
down.
she can't get off.
Oh,
That's okay.
that's okay.
You
that's
might
all
actually
right.
Hang
learn
in
something.
there.
Yeah.
Hang in there.
We're happy to have you.
Okay, now what I was going to move on to next, and what I rang you at
The
about
measure.
11 o'clock this
Yes.
morning to say, can you, is attempts to measure the soul. So
Oh, she called us
fundamentally-
cunts! Yay! Oh, I love a good cunt story. Sorry.
What about balls?
Sorry, I get excited about that.
She does too.
You know, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel when you're going to say cunt. Means you've got nothing else intelligent to say.
And we're just about to talk
What's
about
that?
measuring the soul. Oh, dear.
What's that saying about
Talking about Jesus and the soul.
This might,
bad language is the something
Oh,
or
hello,
other of
Veronica.
the
Sorry, I
ignorant.
just said cunt.
Okay,
let's get on to measuring the soul.
measuring the soul. So in an attempt in, I think it's the early 1900s or maybe 1800s, to try and get some sort of
1901.
get some sort of handle, which also happens to be about the same time as quantum mechanics and general and special
Yes.
relativity.
Yeah,
We're all born.
back in the early
So
1900s.
everyone was learning new wonderful things,
Mm.
and here's another one of them. So basically, the idea was they were going to use weigh scales. So you'd put this poor bugger who's about to breathe his last on these weigh scales. We'll come back to the breathing last thing in a second as well. On these weigh scales, and then waited with bated breath until he passed away or she passed away, and very carefully tracked what happened to the weight on the weigh scale. So
We've all heard this story, and we've seen the movie. There's a movie about
I
it
have
as
got
was it
all the
9
details of
9.5
the
grams?
experiment and how it was
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
The 21 grams, the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you
21
want to hear
grams.
about it?
Please go.
All right. So it's the 21 grams experiment, it's called, and it refers to a scientific study that was published in 1907 by Duncan McDougall, who was a physician, that's a doctor, big word for those who don't know, in Haverhill, Massachusetts. We were going to Massachusetts. Actually, we would have been in the air right now, flying to America. Never mind.
Right
So
now, they are not in
he
the air flying to America.
hypothesized that,
I
you've
think-
got to say it right, please, hypothesized that souls have physical weight, measurable physical weight, and attempted to measure the mass lost by a human when the soul departed the body. Now, we were only talking about this the other week with someone. I think it might have been Justin. He's attempted to measure, at the moment a person dies, to see if there was any change to the weight. And one of the 6 subjects lost 3/4 of an ounce, which is 21.3 grams. So the actual experiment was in 1901. He identified 6 patients in a nursing home whose deaths were imminent.
And
So
if
if
they
you-
weren't, he'd bloody help them
I
along.
know. Yeah, that's one of those studies that if you got put on that study, you'd be shitting yourself. 4 were suffering from tuberculosis, 1 from diabetes. Isn't it amazing?
Been around for a long time.
Yeah,
We've known
but-
how to cure type 2
Yeah.
diabetes since the 1800s.
Yeah, and
Only
1
we've
from an
forgotten.
unspecified cause. So he was looking for people who were specifically suffering from physical exhaustion. Now, you're going to hate this, because he wanted them to be laying still as they were dying so he could measure their weight.
That's probably pretty easily organised.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. So when it looked like they were close to death, they'd race
Ran them
in.
around the block.
They'd race in with a giant industrial-sized scale, pop the bed and the person onto it, and then all sit there and look at them, waiting to see the moment they died, so they could see what happened at the moment of death. Now, he had the belief that humans had souls and animals didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So he also did this experiment with dogs.
Scratch his eyes out. But anyway.
I said,
I'm hoping the dogs were
she's
dying
not
of
going to
old
like
age.
this story. So hang on, I'm just going to find it where. Yeah. So he did this. Only one of the 6 bodies measured a loss. I will get into the results a little bit further down here, but he used apparently 15 dogs at the moment of death to see if there was a change in their weight. He was wanting to use dogs that were sick or dying for his experiment, but was unable to find any. And it's therefore presumed he poisoned the dogs to get his results.
Jesus. Oh, no.
Hope they bit him.
Fuckwit.
Oh,
Anyway.
Anyway.
Results. So one of the patients lost weight, but then put weight back on. That would be me. Story of my life.
Stick to your low carb.
2 of the other patients registered a loss of weight at death, but a few minutes later lost even more weight. So he was looking at the moment they died. He's trying to measure the soul weight, not any other cause.
Were they meditators, and did they have subtle mind going?
One of the patients lost 21.3 grams in weight, coinciding with the time of death. But McDougall disregarded the results of another patient on the grounds the scales were not finally adjusted, and discounted the results of another patient died while the experiment was still being calibrated. In other words, those 2 people didn't fit his hypothesis, so
Cherry
he ditched
picking,
them.
maybe?
Yes. And he reported that none of the dogs lost weight.
No soul.
But there is actually, in the conclusions, I've got some information on that.
Yep.
So while McDougall believed that the results from the experiment showed that the human soul might have weight, his report, which was not published until 1907, stated the experiment would have to be repeated many times before any conclusions could be obtained. So 1 in 6 matched his hypothesis, 3 didn't, and 2 were discarded.
And yet,
criticism.
Yeah, and yet, though, there are so many people who still subscribe to that belief. That
this is the first time I've actually seen a description of what happened. All I've heard is the story that it was measured as somebody died, and it was proved that the soul had weight. I didn't hear the rest of this, and this is really interesting. Sorry, the lovely lady Donna. I can't pay you any attention right now. I'm busy. So criticism. Following the publications of the experiment in American Medicine, they criticised the experiment's validity. Really? Clark
That's why
noted
you have peer review.
That at the time of death, there is a sudden rise in body temperature as the lungs are no longer cooling blood, causing a subsequent rise in sweating, which could easily account for McDougall's missing 21 grams. Clark also pointed out that as dogs do not have sweat glands, they could not lose weight in this manner after death.
That's a good pickup.
Yeah.
He's a thinker, he is.
There was arguments going between McDougall and Clark for the whole year that was published. So he was accused of basically being selective with his reporting. Oh, who would ever do that with a
little
study?
bit like Ansel fucking Keys.
Was,
Look up Ansel Keys and
was
the
he-
7-country study, which should have been the 22-country study, and it was all fucked up. And it's what we've been suffering
He's
from for
saying
40
the
years.
F word,
Yes,
Rilla.
was he paid by the Catholics to do this? Just saying, because they're desperate to find a soul.
Watch the what was the church
Oh
of
dear,
the church
we're
of
going to hell.
I've booked a ticket already.
We're going to hold a rave party down there. So they said it's
Hey,
flawed.
Donna.
They said that he was ignoring the major results. The sample size was too small.
That's why you said you had to do it lots more.
And the capability to measure weight at that time was not precise.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that McDougall likely poisoned and killed 15 healthy dogs in an attempt to support his research has also been a source of criticism.
As it should be.
So there you go. That's the report on the soul at death.
They're sentient beings too. No,
Yes.
Not really any different from us, except they don't really have vocal cords.
You'd swear
And
they
thumbs.
do sometimes,
Oh,
though.
Donnie, you're still here. My love, go get a life. If you don't like us, switch it off.
No, she's got to get her $0 worth.
Oh, okay, yes.
Because she's
'cause we've
paid
got a
so much
refunder.
money to be here. She must get her $0 worth.
All right. So how are we going for time?
No, we're good. We've
We're
still got
good.
50 minutes.
Roman, do you have anything else there you want to add? I've missed out on everyone's comments here, so I've got to go squeeze back through here.
So in the end, as a wrap up, what we're looking at is how the mind functions and whether it can function without the body supporting it. Is that kind of the whole for some period of time?
And what does that mean for separation between mind and soul?
Yeah. And body. And so if the body is gone, what are we as paranormal investigators tapping into? What part of the human being?
And Susie made a good point here. The ancient Egyptians weighed the soul to gain entry into the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was depending on how good or bad.
Yeah, so that was the goods or the bads. And hi there to Paranormal Victoria. Thank you for joining us, Ellie. Everyone pop over to their page and say hi. I'm just going to go through here. I think our people are giving her a hard time. She must be hurting. She called Danielle a cunt as well.
Bless you, Danielle.
Have you got any other words in your repertoire? Let's see what else you can come up with, gorgeous. Oh, she said, fuck your shit. No, you are is not a word. It's a Y-O-U-R.
You should find a thesaurus on your phone. So
John says hi. Is there any questions that you would like to ask Roman? I'm sure that Donna's got some for you.
Yeah, Donna, come on, bring us a good one.
The answer is cunt.
Come on. Bring us a good one, Donna. Ask us a question.
Sorry to all the rest of our
Engage your
beautiful
brain.
people.
Ask us a question.
Engage your brain.
I haven't had a good troll in ages and I still haven't got one, but that's okay. Right, I'm just going to scroll back down through to here. Were there any studies done on capturing the moment the soul leaves the body through photography? That was actually something they mentioned that they wanted to actually do that as
I think the Curlian photography.
Curlian?
Photography. Curlian? Yeah. Photography people were talking about that sort of thing. I don't know what they've actually done.
The Carillion photography is different from the type of photography.
It's an electrostatic field thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's different though than the type of photography that you see at some of the shows that you go to, where you sit in a special seat and put your fingers on two metal pads, and a photograph is taken, and you see all the colours of the rainbow behind you. The theory of that type of photography is kind of the same as they're trying to capture the aura, but it's not Carillion photography, which is more X-ray type of stuff, where you're actually seeing the energetic spikes that are coming out of whatever
Is that
part
the
of the body.
one where they've got like a leaf that's had part of it cut off, and you put it in a Carillion setup, and you actually get the outline of the whole leaf out of it again?
Yeah, Jodie, it would be interesting to have a K2 at the time of death, because the body does put out a small electromagnetic field. Problem being is getting permission to do this sort of thing. Basically, it has to be one of the people in the paranormal field who believes in this, or psi investigators who would say, yes, you have permission to do whatever it is you want to do as I die, and then it's knowing that moment that you're going to die so that they can be set up and ready to go.
I think in many ways it's too special a moment to
Yeah, it is.
sully it like that.
Yeah. It would have to be someone who is so passionate, and the family involved would have to be so passionate about the topic as well, to allow it to happen.
A K2 meter wouldn't cut it though. You'd have to have some form of device that would be able to be literally placed on all parts of your body.
Oh,
Well,
Donna's
that
got
means
a
sort of
cod now.
photography more
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Apparently, she's got a laughing cod.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Chromatic, Kel said. Just going there.
So, what are your thoughts, guys? It's an interesting thing to think about.
The brain also dumps DMT before death as well, from Christy.
Yeah. What?
Which sort of gives you some of those nice hallucinogenic
You're
sort
welcome,
of things.
Stacey. She said she's loving tonight, but she forgot her popcorn.
I mean,
yeah. Where's the brain fit in
Exactly
all of this? The
right.
mind and
Lorraine
the
said
soul.
that after losing her beautiful Ben is Lorraine's dog who
Yeah,
died very
my
unexpectedly
darling.
yesterday.
Yeah, so sorry.
My heart goes out to you, their family, without a doubt. Yeah. So she believes he has a soul. I know my Max and Koo do.
Mm.
They are us. We are them.
Christy volunteers as tribute.
Don't volunteer too early.
Yeah,
One of the things I think you'd potentially do in that experiment from the early 1900s would be basically to put the person in an environment capsule, the same as you do exercise physiology, oxygen intake, heat production, all that sort of thing. You put them in an enclosed space, and you can contain and measure everything. So you contain the oxygen going in,
Well, this
the
is a
carbon
good
dioxide
question.
coming out,
You're going to love this one.
and the sweat. If that's what
that was a good point. The sweat. This is Margie. Do you believe the soul can exist in different dimensions, so is in more than one place at any one time? Depends on the definition of a soul, but yeah.
And dimensions, quantum mechanics, string theory, which is the only thing that's come. You know, Einstein died heartbroken because he came up with special and general relativity, which takes care of all the big picture things like stars and planets and galaxies. And Heisenberg and Schrodinger and others came up with all of the stuff. I've missed out some of the important people there, but came up with the stuff to do with the incredibly small. And both of those theories exactly describe what's going on, and everything we've ever been able to do to measure against those theories has been spot on, and it just keeps getting proven over and over again. But they're fundamentally inconsistent. So when you get big cosmic things like a black hole forming and all of the particles crushed into what's effectively a point, you've got both things operating at the same time, enormous gravity and quantum mechanics and neutrons and quarks and everything else stuck in together. And we can't actually describe that at the moment. But in probably the 90s, some very smart and imaginative people did some thought experiments and came up with the idea of superstring theory, which basically does, the theory ties all of these things together and actually requires gravity and space and time, as well as subatomic particles and quantum mechanics, to be in the form that they're in to make the string theory work. And that string theory only works if you've got, I can't remember now exactly whether it's 7 dimensions or 11 dimensions of space. And if you start looking at the quantum entanglement I spoke about a couple of weeks ago, where you can get particles that are separated by thousands of kilometers, and if you do something to one of them, the other one instantaneously does the opposite as it should. So if they were together and you measured one, the other one would immediately adopt the opposite polarity or spin or whatever it is that you've entangled. Separating them by that distance means that nothing, gravity nor light, can actually travel those thousands of kilometers. It can actually travel about a foot in the time, the accuracy of the experiment they can do. And these things are instantaneously reacting to each other. So, yeah, absolutely. And physically, we're getting to the point where we can't actually test any of this because we've got nothing that can go as small as we need to to do this testing to find out whether it's real or not. But it does pull everything together, and it is consistent, and it provides an explanation for a lot of the things that people have been scratching their heads about, like why there's so many families of particles that just differ in weight. No good reason for it. It's just what we've discovered, and that's what there is. But this starts to explain that sort of thing. And if that's the case, who's to say that our minds do not leave effects and leave imprints in some of those other dimensions?
Just a reminder, everyone, make sure you've liked our page and that you're following us and doing all that sort of stuff. Now I've got a question here. Oh no, I missed it. Where'd it go?
Is it Donna?
Disappeared. Oh, here we are. What does a soul look like, and where does it go? That is the big question.
I think we can get really stuck on what things look like, and this goes back to the paranormal
And
as
is it
well.
a thing? Isn't it just energy? I
Yeah,
don't know.
do we have to always
What
put
does a light ray look
something?
like?
Yeah, put something in a box where it needs to look like something that we recognise. Our minds need that because it makes it easy.
We don't cope without that.
Yeah, but not necessarily. Energy can just be a dispersal of particles. It may not gel to look like anything at all. So the soul might not look like anything.
You might
at
not
all.
even be able to detect it, like
what does-
neutrinos and dark matter.
What does a fart look like?
It exists, but well, it kind of looks
If
like
you light
this.
it, you can see it.
That's what it looks like.
Unrelated but an S word. Do you believe or know of shadow people? You need to go over to Spirit Talk Australia, Sonia, and look at the talk that we did, the interview we did on, was it Friday morning?
With Jack Montgomery.
Yeah, Jack Montgomery, who is a shaman. Not a shaman, he is,
He works
He's
out
a cool dude.
Yeah.
about shamanism, and he talks about shadow. We talk about shadow people on there. It's really interesting. So pop over there and have a look. String theory. I said we could have done that as an S1, couldn't we?
Yeah, well, that fits.
As a nurse, yes, a lot of energy lights go on and off, and buzzes sometimes.
Yeah.
Transcendental meditation. I'm just trying to get down here. I've missed a few comments. I think, and it's so small it's hard to read it until I click on it.
A pair of glasses.
What have we got coming up? Well, we've got our last night of the
Paranormal
introduction
to paranormal investigation. That's coming up tomorrow for those that signed up for that course. And in 2 weeks' time, we have our new course coming up, which is personal protection techniques.
Yeah. So that's it's to do with psychic
condoms.
Psychic protection, psychic personal protection.
Yep. So that's coming up. You can actually go over to the Australian School of Ghost Hunting and sign up for that. It's only $20.
$20 for 2 weeks.
Yep.
So.
And we do have in the works something very special for July.
We've got to work on it. We had to cancel our Wallachia weekend due to the uncertainty of everything. So we are planning something. We can't say what it is yet, but we are planning something. In dream state, do you think we can be in different dimensions and other areas of the world, assisting others physically or energetically in that time while we sleep in our present reality? That's a big topic.
Jeez.
Why wouldn't we?
I think we've lost Donna.
Oh. Everyone say, oh.
Oh.
Look, so, I don't think it's something you could disprove. And given everything else that we do and don't know.
Well, when you think of the fact that you can do, people can do crisis apparitions, living people can do crisis apparitions, why it could be possible for anything really when you're in that unconscious state or meditational state, as we were talking at the beginning.
And that's quite interesting and potentially convincing when that sort of thing can happen, when the person who experiences it has no clue at all, not even a hint that something's going on elsewhere, that something's actually happening. And I find that really fascinating.
And Heather's nailed it. There isn't really any way to put paranormal research in a box. The more you think you've figured it out, the more doors it's opened. Yes.
That's life and science through the centuries.
Absolutely.
That's exactly parallel to science.
Oh, Donna's missed. Lots of people are going, oh.
You know you've got something by the tail when
you can't explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I was saying before. You answer one question really well. If it's a worthwhile question, you'll have a dozen more immediately spring to mind from your answer, and then you go, oh shit, which way do I go?
In all of this, though, what seems to be tied in is the mind and how the mind operates, how it connects with our exterior world, how it connects with us and our bodies, and what it can actually do. What it can do and what we can make it do. And I think everyone should be working hard at trying to make it do more than it's doing presently, because there is mysterious amounts of stuff that we can create and do, and we are just not using our minds to the optimum at all.
That brings us to the end of the show tonight. We've been on for an hour.
I know.
So
it's been good.
I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Roman for joining us.
You can thank me later, darling.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Don't want to know. Don't want to know.
I have to pay the price. Remember that.
If you have enjoyed this in-depth experience, which definitely has not been light and fluffy tonight, but has been extraordinary, let us know. Send us some feedback, and we will do more of this as we go through the ABC of Paranormal Strangers, and then go back to A and experience more strange things in the ABC of Paranormal Strangeness.
Because every time we come up with a letter, there's like a list this long of things that we can cover. So we next week we were looking at
telepathy.
Excellent.
And no, not telepathy, telekinesis.
Telekinesis.
And
everything.
And table tipping. I'm going to talk about table tipping. Might even get a little video up, hopefully, of us doing some table tipping. Sorry, I left that on top of your microphone.
You did.
And hopefully we're going to have a little experiment with spoon bending. But we'll give you details during the week of what sort of spoon you need to bring, and we're all going to have a crack at spoon bending live online.
We could have done that for us too.
It could look really weird, but we're going to try it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining us. See you on the dark side.
Bye.
Bye.